Next group of individuals I just want to thank are the Block.One employees. So Georgia, who is not here today, she's in Hong Kong. She helped to facilitate a lot of the food and the drinks that are here, as well as just promoting this event from their Twitter and such. Also David Moss, who's been instrumental in just helping us organize. And then, of course, finally, Thomas Cox, who will be our keynote this evening. So thank you to all of them. And of course, we need to thank everyone here, right? You, all in this room, are EOS New York and are EOS. So I want everyone to give you a round of, all of you, I want to give a round of applause. So thank you all for being part of this.
Who's flying? I can take a picture now.
Community is something that's incredibly important for blockchain to be effective. And so I want to challenge everyone in this room that if you want to see change in this world and you want to see a decentralized future, you must get involved. And so Kevin and I up here, we're not EOS, right? Everyone in this room is EOS. And so let's make sure that however you feel you can contribute, you're actively doing so. So please, whether you want to do something independently or you want to do something with EOS New York, please reach out to us, engage us. Let's figure out how to put on some great events. So please, just everyone keep that in mind. The other thing I'd like to do is, everyone, if you can pull out your phone, laptop, if you have a Palm Pilot.
We're going to get interactive.
Yeah. And I want you to go to menti.com. If anyone's ever done this before, you might be aware of how this works. So you go to menti.com, and then once you're there, you need to type in. Oh, I need to move it over. Let's try this again.
Do not enter your private key.
And then when you're at menti.com, you're going to use that code 75122. And perfect, everyone's already engaging. So this is a real-time sort of interactive tool, and what we want to understand is, where is everyone? Where's your hometown? Where are you joining us from today?
There's mine, Brent. Fantastic. I know he's from there.
All right, good. A lot of New York City, Roanoke, Korea. Excellent, Korea. Manhattan, Portland.
I know I met some people from Miami. There are people from Salt Lake. People, if you know, that are flying in. It's pretty fantastic to see.
Great. And we have a counter down here of how many participants. So I want to hit at least 100 for all of these. We only have a few. Just be very quick.
Dirty Jersey, come on. Come on.
There's a profanity filter on this, so let's not try to test it. Awesome. All right, so let's go to the next question. So we have a diverse crowd out here. This is excellent. So what's your profession? And down here we have a few options and then an other. So it's because Menti doesn't allow more than 7 multiple choice options. So let's see where people typically would place themselves.
Hardware tech, get no love.
It's you. Awesome, awesome. So,
all right, is this one? There we go. I'm gonna kill it, don't worry.
all right, a lot of entrepreneurs, software developers, or other technology, some VC, and then other. All right, so I'm really glad to see a lot of artists and creatives too, because I think EOS in particular is going to benefit from you folks.
Everybody can benefit from good user design, right?
All right, so Other folks, right? If you selected other, what is your profession? Ooh.
We told you it was going to filter it out. Now, I really want to talk to the Banana Man. I want to know more about that and the banana stand. There's always money in the banana stand.
All right.
Very diverse.
And planning the marijuana space, excellent. All right, we'll come back to this.
Yeah.
So next, in one word, describe what blockchain means to you. And you are limited to one word, if I set the settings correctly.
Interesting. Anarchy, freedom. Someone put the matrix in there, like it. A lot of freedom. Techno-economic revolution. It's a word today. There seems to be a trend here. It certainly is going to empower the individual, provide that level of freedom. It's something that we are going to be seeing as a foundational technology moving into the future. And whether or not it goes to the moon, that's not what we're here to talk about. But I'm glad it's up there.
I mean, I love this. I love freedom and the future in the center. That's what I think too. So, all right, we'll keep going. We only have a few more. How familiar are you with blockchain technologies? And remember, be honest. This is anonymous. So we're doing this because we're going to try to help cater some of these events depending on the level of understanding. So.
Now this is really great. Yeah, I think it's good that there's a lot of us that think that we sit in the center. We sit in this intermediate space. There's a lot to learn. This is a new technology. So if there are self-professed experts in the room, please, if you're out there, share your expertise. Go around, meet people, tell them what you know. And if you're a beginner, don't be worried that you're going to ask any type of question. There are no dumb questions here. Again, this is new. So be open, be transparent, and let's share the knowledge that we've all brought in this room together.
All right. And then, what is your smart contract experience? I have written a smart contract. I tried writing a smart contract. I've heard of smart contract. And what's a smart contract?
Then we definitely want to see these 34, 35 people letting the rest of the room know what is a smart contract and what kind of experience they have with it.
Yeah, in the networking, please share your knowledge. It's great. All right. How did you first learn about EOS? Awesome.
Smart dad. There you are, Rick.
And there you are.
Oh, there we go.
YouTube.
Gas. Gas? Was that gas prices on Ethereum? Your Bobby girlfriend? That's a keeper.
Yeah.
Good, good.
Excellent.
Keep going. What types of EOS projects are you most eager to work on? And this is open-ended, right? So,
And considering a lot of people haven't been involved in writing smart contracts, it's okay if you don't have an answer to it. It's just to learn more about what's possible.
maybe it's not. All right, don't worry, we only have one or two more, so. Insurance, yeah, definitely.
Tooling. Meet you later.
See what good answers can get you?
All right. almost hit 80. DApp's good. Voter education and
DAP's
policy.
decentralized exchange.
Good.
And yes.
So, and then what sorts of topics would you like to see discussed at EOS New York meetups? And so this isn't your only chance to opine on this, but give us some. Not this.
Not this.
Got through our.
We love feedback. We hear you. How it works, okay. I know that we were having some security conversations that I was having in the room before.
Staking, okay.
Stake. After party. All right. So I think we could set up a curriculum of fundamentals to talk about over the coming months, absolutely. Go ahead.
All right. Finally, are you ready to hear about EOS from Thomas Cox? Hopefully,
Yeah.
So,
Please launch your mouth.
So Thomas Cox is Vice President of Product for Block.One. He started his technology career 28 years ago at Oracle Corporation. He has architected data systems for firms like Sony, Blue Cross, and IBM. But 15 years ago, he became fascinated with human architecture, team dynamics, and the evolution of cooperation. He also ran for governor of his home state of Oregon on the Libertarian Party ticket. It was this combination of technical knowledge and leadership skills that led Block.One to invite Thomas to join them. He's currently focused on architecting EOS.io's governance system. Please welcome Mr. Thomas Cox.
To be here in New York and be paid to come here.
Yeah.
But you'll have to pay to be here. I got paid. That's awesome. And it's been 20 years since I walked the streets of Manhattan, and I love what you've done with the place. It's just like before, only more so. I want to tell you about EOS.io, the software. I want to tell you a little bit about Block.One, the organization. But first, I need, under penalty of you don't want to know what from our lawyers, I must read this aloud to you. And I'm not making that up. EOS.io software will be a free product and development platform that all developers can use to develop, run, and govern decentralized applications. This presentation and any comments made at the event does not constitute an offer to sell or the solicitation of an offer to purchase the EOS ERC20 compatible tokens, open quote, EOS tokens, close quote, close paren, comma, or any recommendation of the EOS tokens, nor is this presentation an offer, solicitation, or sale of the EOS tokens in any jurisdictions or in any person in which or to whom such offer, solicitation, or sale would be unlawful or is prohibited. No information regarding the EOS tokens or the ongoing EOS token distribution will be provided or discussed at this event. Blockchain. Blockchains were introduced to the world as we know them, into the popular imagination. By Bitcoin in 2008, the software existed, all the components existed for over a decade before that, but it was only with Bitcoin that cryptography and the trustless environment were combined to create a digital currency that could be moved but couldn't be duplicated. Blockchain makes that possible, but blockchain makes so much more possible. With Ethereum, not only could balances be stored on a blockchain, but actual units of code could be put on a blockchain to be run by a Turing-complete finite state machine, giving you a world computer and the ability to run transactions anywhere. What I want to see, what you want to see, is where this line is going. What is the high-performance smart business of the future going to look like, and how are we going to build it? When I say high performance, what do I mean? Currencies and debt notes are about 20,000 transactions per second worldwide today. Social media, Facebook likes are about 52,000 people hitting that like button per second worldwide. Exchanges and prediction markets, 100,000 transactions a second worldwide. Bitcoin, 3 transactions per second worldwide. Ethereum, 30. So we have a ways to go. Here's what you may not know if Bitcoin is your universe. In 2013, the first decentralized exchange was created, which introduced a stable proof of stake. And in 2014, delegated proof of stake was invented, which provides essentially the same security as the proof of work that you're familiar with from Bitcoin, but in a much more ecologically friendly way. BitShares, and then BitShares 2.0, the introduction of the graphene technology, pushed blockchain to 100,000 transactions per second. And the second BitShares iteration also included the self-funding sustainable development environment. Because the worst thing about the blockchain has been, one of the worst, has been we create this amazing thing and it's immutable and then the money's spent, but there's this blockchain running, so who's going to pay to keep it up? Well, here, you pay. No, you should pay. I'm not using it enough that you should pay. And so no one pays. See these amazing blockchains out there that no one's supporting. That gets fixed here by a self-sustaining funding mechanism that we will see moving forward through other platforms. And then Steam was introduced in 2016, which is essentially Reddit or social media on a blockchain, where instead of what Facebook sells, anybody think Facebook's free? You're not paying for Facebook. They're selling you. They're selling us. They're selling our data. They're selling knowledge about us. What if you had a social media platform that paid you to create content? Steam does that. It also includes fairly advanced features like free user transactions. You don't want to be paying a microtransaction to post to your social media, so you don't. Account recovery. If you are hacked or lose your password, you can get your account back. If you were to look today, this is slightly out of date, but the point is the same. If you were to look at total blockchain activity worldwide, you would find that BitShares plus Steam, both created by Dan Larimer, commit more transactions per second than Ethereum and Bitcoin combined, at a tiny fraction of the hardware resource. Bitcoin and Ethereum are at their limit. They can't go any faster. We have lots of headroom on these other designs. And the person who architected those systems is our architect for EOS.
Woo! Yeah.
Cheers again, I know who my people are now. Now, a smart business is very hard to build because you've got your hardware at the bottom, you've got the thing you want users to interact with, the application at the top, and a great big empty space in the middle that you're going to have to fill if no one else has filled it for you. You essentially need an operating system. What do decentralized applications need in this space? Things like, well, web application, millions of users, account names, free app for users, no purchase necessary, responsiveness, upgradability, the ability to recover your account, thousands of transactions per second minimum, and bug recovery. This isn't too much to ask. They should be table stakes for any serious commercial application. And we provide this. The EOS operating system, this decentralized system, provides everything in the middle to allow you to create that application on top. So we provide the database structures, the account permission, the scheduling, the authentication, the interrupt communication, everything you would need short of your logic that your users want so that you can be productive as a developer. It's the first blockchain operating system. The major points to take away is that we are highly scalable, highly flexible, extremely usable, and near and dear to my heart, we have governance. What does that mean? I want you to visualize a spectrum. The law of the jungle is the Bitcoin universe. You are fighting to make blocks. If I make the block, you don't. The code is the law. If the code runs a certain way and you didn't expect it, too bad. Because it's immutable, it is what it is. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got IBM Hyperledger, Fabric, and all the other portions of that enormous ecosystem, which exist in walled gardens. It's like the king's castle. So you can either be in the jungle, or you can be in the king's castle. The king makes the rules. They decide who makes the blocks. They hand out the credentials. And centralization by another name. Now the banks love it because they don't trust each other, but they do want to be in a walled garden with each other. But what about the middle? Where is the Swiss village of property owners who want to band together to create a better civilization? EOS provides that. Halfway between the unpermissioned public and the permissioned private is permissioned public blockchains with governance. What's that going to look like? It's going to look like a token that gives you access, but that you do not use up. When you buy a token on this kind of a platform, you hold it, and it gives you the property right to bandwidth, storage, voting. You keep it as long as you want to keep it. It doesn't get burned up or used up. It does decay slightly in value because of inflation, which I'll cover in just a second, but it's yours. And that means that no one can spam this any more than they have the tokens to justify the bandwidth. Now, on some of these other blockchains you may be familiar with, if there is a time-sensitive aspect, an ICO that closes in an hour, an escrow account where you've got a time window in which to challenge it. If someone floods the network with bogus transactions, they can lock you out. And then you can't participate in the ICO, you can't register your concern, you can't perform your transaction in that environment. But in this environment, you have the property right to a proportion of the bandwidth equal to your stake. You cannot be spammed or locked out. That is huge. You also use the tokens to nominate the block producers. They aren't fighting for it. They're lining up to be good citizens. They essentially want to be like a very good electrical utility, where you go in, you flip on the light switch, and the lights come on. You go to your blockchain, the blocks just happen. And they fight to be the high-quality, low-cost producer. And they take turns round robin. And we have, I mentioned, 5% annual inflation maximum that is used in 3 ways. Number 1, they can be destroyed or not issued in the first place to maintain the value of the token. Number 2, they can be used to pay the block producers. So everyone essentially is paying an equal tax, if you will, through the inflation to pay for, number 1, block production, and number 2, for systems improvement. This is a known system. It works well. It's been working very well for BitShares and Schema. Now, the systems architecture can be seen as existing in 5 layers. I'll walk you through just a few highlights of each of the 5 layers. And the first is user experience. If your users are having a bad experience, you as a creator of decentralized applications will not have happy users, and they won't use you. They'll go use some centralized platform instead. What does that mean? Well, things like human-readable account names. Things like hacked account recovery and lost password recovery. Can you imagine trying to explain Ethereum key management to your grandmother over the phone? It's horrible. We don't want you to be in that condition. We don't want that person calling up you as tech support, trying to get you to sort them through, oh, I lost my Ethereum key, what do I do? Well, you kiss that goodbye, is what you do. In that environment, but not in ours. The developer experience layer, to focus on productivity, including things like declarative security instead of programmatic. So you can very sophisticated security structure with minimal work. It's enforced by the system. Things like dynamic account permissions and so forth. Crucial utility functions like the ability to freeze and replace a malfunctioning contract. No one in this room will ever write bug-free code. Any code that's meaningful, when you deploy it, something will happen. And if you're on a totally immutable blockchain that does not have a feature like this, you could be in deep trouble. Think of the DAO hack, think of the Parity Wallet hack, and so forth. We know that to be prime time, to really get out to the masses, we're going to have to allow you to write the best code you can, deploy it, find the bug, and fix it in production. This allows you to do that. Provide you with built-in data structures. You don't have to recreate data structures as programming. And even contract level governance, so that humans can make human decisions within the ecosystem created by your application. I mentioned the Swiss village analogy. This constitution and manageability layer is that. This is the crucial differentiator, in my opinion. And it's simply this. We appoint roles not by people fighting law the jungle style and not being appointed by the king, but through a democratic process, collective decision-making process, with referenda. Who will be a block producer? Who will take on certain roles? If we want to change the rules, if we decided 21 block producers is not the right number, we want to go to 22 or 30 or 15, whatever, we vote on it. Change the rules of the vote. Not a hard fork. And we're baking into the platform the expectation of arbitration to solve problems. This is the essence of smart contracts. Smart contracts were invented long before blockchain. And in a smart contract, you have two elements. You've got the intention of the people who have entered into the contract, and then you've got the execution of the code. And most of the time they're the same and we're all happy, but occasionally they differ. And in our environment, the intention of the people outranks what the code does. And what that means is you or the other party or the two of you together can go, oh my gosh, that's not what we intended, I'm so sorry. Let's freeze this and go into arbitration. The arbitrator can overrule what happened to make what we both want to have happen actually happen. You were overcharged, you were undercharged. It says you still have it, but you don't. And of course, at the bottommost layer, security and consensus. Hard consensus, the hard cryptography that keeps all blockchains safe. We use soft consensus, which is a lower level of requirement that, for instance, the block producers have to agree on what order in which they'll make transactions in a particular round. They all have to agree, but no one else really has to. That's soft consensus. And of course, delegated proof of stake. That's the architecture, and you know a little bit more about how we're imagining this playing out. What you can do next? Well, download and build the software. Sign up for our developer support list at developers at Block.One. Or talk to our venture capital people at VC at Block.One. Some of you may have been following in the news. We've been taking in a great deal of money at Block.One. That money is being pushed back out into the community in the form of investments in the creation of applications that will run on top of the platform. To create as much value for the platform as possible. And I see no reason why your project should not be funded. Now, they might think differently. But at the very least, you need to talk to them. And of course, engage with our virtual community and join our Telegram channels. I want Kev to stand up. So Kev over here runs EOS Go. Which is the premier non-Telegram, non-chat forum for discussions of all things EOS and EOS.io. The block producers are in there, people like me working on governance, people who either have projects and want staff, or people who want to staff a project or matchmaking on EOS Go. If you're not on EOS Go yet, and you're interested in the EOS ecosystem, you need to get on that platform. And get on the Telegram channel, of course. Now, I'm sure I've answered 99% of the questions in the room, but there might be one or two lingering. We left a little time for some Q&A.
So if you have a question, raise your hand. I'll run over to you with the mic so everybody else in the room can hear you.
We have some mic runners here, fore and aft.
Hi, my name is Tarek. I have two questions for you. So the first one about the freezing of smart contracts.
Yeah.
The whole idea behind decentralized smart contracts is that they're not destroyable, indestructible.
Yes.
So if I have a certain agreement with my client, for instance, what protects them from me just freezing the contract or destroying it at any point in time?
Did I mention arbitration? So
Yeah,
let's
but it's only me and my client.
Well, no, it's not only you. You're in an ecosystem. You're in the Swiss village. You're a citizen of the village.
Mm-hmm.
If you attempted to defraud your client by, not that you would, we'll say somebody else. Somebody creates a smart contract and they're about to finish a deal that's exactly what they intended, but now they don't like it anymore. And so they go, oh, they're going to freeze it. Well, guess what? If you haven't unrolled it, you've just frozen it, and your client, who's also a citizen, can say, hey, wait a second. That is not the intention of our contract. If they hit the arbitration button, the arbitrator steps in and says, you just committed fraud. He's getting what he's due.
So who's the arbitrator?
Well, arbitration is decentralized. Every contract by default will either get the arbitration layer that's baked into the constitution of the system, or more likely, you'll say, well, I've got to have arbitration anyway. I'll pick an arbitrator or an arbitration service that's familiar with my industry. So if you've got a gaming platform, you'll probably want arbitrators that know your game. If you've got financial services, you probably want arbitrators who are familiar with financial services. So you'll pick a service, and we're the business, right now we are working on finding people who want to be arbitrators, and you should be looking for them for your enclave inside of EOS. Who will resolve these for you? Because if you don't pick them, we will. So remember, you can freeze it, but that doesn't mean you get to run away with tokens. It means that everything's frozen there, and you got your hand in the cookie jar, and now you're frozen. And it's immutable that you did this. Everyone can see it. And so it's like, wow, what kind of guy does that? So you didn't get away with it, and your reputation's destroyed, and the arbitrator rolls it forward anyway, so the guy you tried to rip off is ripped off. So thank you for exposing your character, right? So yeah, that is not it's not a rip people off for free card. It's a make sure that the intention of the contract is carried out. So yeah, you can freeze it, but then you got to be accountable for the freeze.
So my second question, as you mentioned, in EOS, we don't pay for computational power or storage. We just
You do not pay a fee. You stake tokens.
Yeah, unlike Ethereum, for instance.
Yes.
So my question, the owners of these resources, how do they make money?
Right. So how do the block producers who are providing the computation bandwidth, the network bandwidth,
Exactly.
storage, and so forth, how do they make money?
Exactly.
I was working on the spreadsheet for that last night. By the way, who's next on the questions? Keep your hand up and get the microphone to you in advance of you asking. So how do block producers make money? And the answer is through the inflation. The top 21 block producers by vote of the token holders, they've each, when they said, I would like to produce blocks, they also say, and here's how much I'd like to be paid. I'll do it for 1%. This person over here will do it for 1.2% inflation. This person would like 1.8, whatever. We find out who's the top 21, what's the median bid. They all get paid the median. So every single block they produce, some new tokens are created by the system and given to whoever created that block. They're taking turns going around. So a typical, based on my spreadsheet from the other night, you would get about $10,000 a day to run at 2% inflation, and I think it was an $8 token level. And so if the token price and the percent inflation vary, you get different payoffs. But it's essentially, you can get several $1 million a year running a not very expensive server farm producing blocks.
So EOS is not capped.
It is not capped, but it is, the inflation is capped. So the 1 billion tokens we go live with becomes 1.05 grows, but it grows at a fixed rate. I mentioned the network emissions, aka inflation, is paying for block production and paying for systems improvements.
But doesn't this limits the amount of total computational power? What if the whole world wants to use EOS?
What if the whole world wants to use EOS? That's exactly the problem I want to have. Problem of success.
There's this thing called a cloud you may have heard of.
Perhaps AWS will have something to help.
But the amount of money I have to pay all these people is limited.
If you've never used the cloud, you'll be amazed how cheap it is to have large scalable systems.
I mentioned that this is where the inflation goes to. Some of the inflated tokens are then destroyed to bring the total supply down. Some go to pay block producers and some go to systems improvement fees. Okay, go ahead.
So I would like to touch on
Your name is?
Eugene.
Eugene.
So I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm a security worker. I'm a security worker.
Mike's still up.
I'll just try to speak louder. So I'm a contributor to the EOS platform.
You, stop touching my record. You got a record.
Bad touch.
I'm a contributor in the EOS yeah. So there's one project I'm working on, and I did hear about VC fund. So I've heard an announcement about it. So
Yeah, your thumb just wants to fall on that button, and that turns it off.
It's gonna be weird, but we're gonna get through it.
I feel like a celebrity now. Anyway, so I think that I just want to make this question common for everyone who is working on EOS-related project. There are certain criteria or governance in terms of applying for VC funds for a project. So I don't want it to be about my project. I just want anyone interested or anyone working on a interesting project that will add value to the EOS platform. How do they go about and actually, do we just send email to VC and,
You're asking what the investment criteria are.
Yes.
Great. So I'll answer. Go ahead and hand the mic off, and I'll answer that question. I haven't the faintest idea what the criteria are.
That's fair.
And they'll tell you when you write them. And next question is.
Hi, Sam Jernigan.
Hey,
The
Sam.
question is about peak transactions per second. If you're running the full 21 nodes, and then maybe also thinking past that, thinking about side chains and other types of projects. I've heard this extremely wide range in terms of what potentially we could get to. So I'm very curious and where in terms of the security, and I mean at half millisecond, 500 millisecond block times, for example, so like fully maxed out. And I'm also curious about the critique from somebody like Untitled about the security, at that type of optimization.
So the question I heard was, how much speed are we going to get out of this thing when it goes live, or even later? And the 21 block producers, is that so centralized that it represents maybe a security issue? I'll take centralization first. I don't have the slide for this, so you'll have to visualize it. The top, I think it's 5 mining pools, control 75% of Bitcoin mining. And about the same concentration exists for Ethereum mining. So I think 21 sounds a lot better than 5. From a practical perspective, 21 is mathematically, we've demonstrated to our own satisfaction, an optimal number, because remember, you're voting on block producers. If you have hundreds of block producers, I promise you, I'm not reading that voter's pamphlet. And you probably aren't either. But if it's too few, it's too concentrated. And, by the way, everything on the EOS.io platform is configurable. So if the community decides through a proof that maybe you write, that 30 is better than 20, that after 30 it starts to drop off, You submit a proposal, 30 days later, they voted for it, it gets rolled in, and then 30 is the magic number. So this is absolutely under the control of the community with the number. And what we found through BitShares and Steemit, both of whom use the 21 block producer model, is that it seems to work really, really well. And then regarding transactions per second, we were getting really excited about 3 or 4 months ago about the promise of multi-threading and sharding and so forth to get like really into massive numbers. And as we got closer to actually implementing that, we realized, hey, wait a second, there's not even a use case for that today. I mean, CryptoKitties doesn't need more than about 40. Aren't they like the hottest thing on Ethereum? So we will, let's just say we will comfortably outperform, I would predict by an order of magnitude, anybody else, and maybe everybody else, when we launch.
30 is 14. So are we talking 10,000? Are we talking 100,000? Are we talking a million?
I don't have a prediction for you for June, but I will tell you we are going live with a single threaded implementation that I'm thinking 1,000 transactions, 10,000, somewhere in that range, very, very likely. And then multi-threaded, it just gets crazy big after that. We've been re-architecting the block structure to make multi-threading and sharding much easier. We're doing all the precondition, all the pre-work necessary to enable future multi-threading. Between that and the ability to upgrade the software without a fork, which is a very exciting feature, we have a lot of headroom. Next questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Your name?
Is this on? Okay, great.
And your name is? If it's green, you're good. Don't be pushing buttons, people. It's just your
Let me try with this. Great. My name is Vladimir. I'm a software developer. I don't work in blockchain at the moment. But in any case, the question. So June is 4 months away, right? And Block.One has said many times over that you guys are not the ones launching the chain. It's the community that will launch the chain.
Correct.
So I think the people who are involved in projects here probably know how this is going to work. But I kind of wonder, if the blockchain is not live, how are the block producers going to be elected? And like, what are the logistics of this, if you don't mind, in some
I was having a conversation on that this morning with some of you have seen Barton in his videos. A couple of you have seen Barton, one of our lead programmers. And Dan released a new thought paper, I think just a week ago. It's what they call BIOS EOS. When you first launch an EOS.io blockchain, you do it as a single node in a kind of a BIOS boot up mode. And the current thinking changed, is that we will find who our candidate block producers are, who have demonstrated to the community that they are reliable, they've got good hardware, they have good intentions, their finances are transparent. The community trusts them. And of that group, we'll randomly select one of them to be that BIOS producer. He will launch an initial chain using a snapshot of the ERC20 tokens so that everyone who holds one of those tokens now gets the equivalent token balance in the new chain. That's called the Genesis block. The Genesis block then gets built on by installing all of the native contracts by the BIOS producer, and then a random selection of 21 block producers from the trusted pool are named. The BIOS producer then drops out completely, and those 21 start holding elections. They were appointed, not elected, so they cannot earn any block fees. So the sooner they elect somebody, the better. The token holders hold elections. Elected block producers replace the 21 appointed ones in the orderly fashion that we do that. And within, I think it'll be about 10 rounds, which for us is about 10 minutes, we will have gone from BIOS boot to the 21 appointed to the 21 elected. Now, none of this is written in exactly one email. This is nowhere documented anywhere, it's not coded yet. But it's looking like the natural progression of the things we've done so far. Is this making any sense at all?
It does, it's fascinating. There's also, right.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Everything we've done has been dependent completely on the community. We don't even run our own discussion forum. That's done by the community. The block producers are self-identifying and self-organizing. Why? Because we believe completely in the Swiss village model, that people will step up, they will stand up, and they will find ways to cooperate. And if we cannot cooperate as human beings, then our model of blockchain will die. And if we can, and I believe we can, then our blockchain technology that empowers radical cooperation across all kinds of previously existing barriers. I believe in that vision. And June 3rd is the test of that, the first of many. I believe it'll work.
Let me just help me explain this. Why I think it's not make it work. Time is very short.
This is blockchain. Time is short. Come on. 4 months? That's like 4 years in other words.
Seriously.
Happy to talk to you offline about that. You guys are the very first audience on the planet to hear about the new Meetup process, by the way, so yay you. And by next week, it might all be different, who knows? But that's the current best thinking, I promise you. Next question.
Thanks so much for describing the Meetup process. I'm Eric Howell from Columbia University. And I just wanted to ask, so in delegated proof of stake, which I think is an action problem here. I'll just yell. Delegated proof of stake is very, I think, effective mechanism, but it kind of relies on two processes, right? One is having a good distribution, which I think the EOS contract kind of guarantees. And then, excellent. And then the other is incentivizing voting. And my question is, some of the other delegated proof of stake chains have kind of run into some issues, depending on your perspective of how bad they are, concerning voter incentives, and particularly in terms of like kickbacks for voting certain ways and so on. So, but if there are no kickbacks, it's particularly if there's a market, for example, like a rental market for, say, renting out your bandwidth, right? So if I own EOS tokens, I might want to rent out my bandwidth to some DApp developer, and if that involves locking up my tokens, and then voting involves locking up my tokens, I might be kind of economically incentivized not to vote. So my question would be, how can you kind of make sure that there's a large enough community that's participating in the voting and governance process that isn't kind of off trying to rent out their bandwidth or their stake in RAM and so on, and that just ends up superseding the voter?
So the challenge for us is, I'll recap the question the best I can, Eric, help me get it right, is that the chain is only as secure and well run as the voters require the block producers to be. And if the voters, let's say a subset of the voters collude with some of the block producers to somehow rip off the chain maybe, that could be bad. Or if too many of the voters just don't pay attention. Or if the voters vote for reasons other than the intrinsic value of those block producers as good, trustworthy producers. So how do we incentivize good, thoughtful voting? And the answer we've come up so far is this. When you choose to vote your tokens, when you stake, you must stake them in order to vote. So you've got a pool of unused tokens, you take a portion of them and you stake them over here to voting. They're no longer available for bandwidth or storage. And they are locked up for as long as you want to be voting, plus 6 months. So let's say you put 600 tokens over there into voting, and then you say, I'm done voting, give me my tokens back. Then over a 26-week period, you'll get 1/26 each week of your tokens back, trickling back to you. Which means if you make stupid votes with a large number of tokens, you're exposed to the long-term impact of your stupid vote. And so if someone were to spend, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars buying lots of tokens in order to harm the platform, they now have to sit there and watch their token value erode from their own stupidity. It's like buying a house to burn it down. It's just dumb.
They get a block reward for locking up and staking and voting?
There is no block reward. The only reward for voting is getting a good block producer. It is intrinsic reward only. And we are establishing as a norm off-chain that block producers paying for votes is bad, evil, and wrong. Because when you vote, you are producing a public good. You are using your judgment to say these are good block producers. And the entire community benefits when you do that well. It is literally a public good in the technical definition of that term. And we need that. And that means if people aren't willing to take it seriously and be invested for the long term and stand by their vote for 6 months, they shouldn't vote. And the people who plan to be in this platform for the long term have every incentive to lock up some of their tokens to make sure they're good block producers. And that's the current plan. And we'll find out if it works. Question?
So
your name is?
My name is Jiang Zhu. I have a couple of questions. One is on producer, the other is on VC partnership model. So on producers, even though they talk about the dynamic producer number just recently, but let's say right now 21 is a default number. And then what is the mechanism for other outside of that 21 producer who could be future candidate producers? How would they get incentivized to keep on the queue for potential future?
So glad you asked that. I overlooked mentioning that. Let me answer that.
Okay, first.
So every time a block is produced, a certain number of new tokens are generated as inflation to pay for block production. The block production fee is split into two streams. One goes to whoever created that block, the other goes into a bucket. And that bucket is available for a once-a-day draw for the top 121 block producers and candidates based on their percentage of the total vote. So if you've got 3% of the vote, you're in 27th place, you're not producing blocks, but you got 3%, well, once a day you get 3% of that bucket. Yay you. And that amounts to quite a lot of money. That's a big incentive to keep your servers warm. Maybe you're using it for other things, but you're ready to jump in to be a block producer if you're asked. And that stream of money incentivizes you to do two things. One is stay in the block production game, and two, campaign for votes. Campaign, educate, outreach, public service, all the things that are going to incentivize people to vote for you. Every additional vote is additional money for you.
And the payment will be according to the percentage of vote they got last time.
Yes.
Second thing is on the Block.One, we should talk about this VC partnership program. Obviously, it's great to get the funding sort of back to the community to fund those potential DS. But in terms of the benefit and the interest, how is that model going to work out? So let's say Block.One and Tomorrow partner up together and they invest in something. If it's, let's say, 50-50, will that potentially crowd out some participation from community in future in those projects? And also, the other thing is every PDA have this L job is, we proffer that as existing holder benefits from that. But it also, in my mind, kind of perpetuates some sort of initial stake distribution in EOS into a new project. For some whales in EOS, they probably get an unproportional big stake in future L job type of projects as well. So in that case, it's like this kind of distribution model perpetuated into different projects, which is not necessarily healthy for the community.
That is a really important question. So the way I heard the question is this. Number one is the VC funding going to crowd out non-VC funding. That's part of it.
Like an ICO that people, community can participate.
Right, because in an ICO you can participate, but in a venture capital, you and I might be frozen out. And the short answer is I have no idea. There's a risk of that, and we're going to find out what happens. My belief is that there's more than enough pie to go around. There's going to be a lot of applications that the VCs may not happen to get to. They can still do ICOs, and I hope they do. Secondly, you asked about airdrops and the ways in which those tokens will be distributed, maybe disproportionately to early adopters rather than late adopters. Is that your major point?
Yeah, if the airdrop is according to the current EOS stake you have.
Oh, right, if they...
With whatever distribution in EOS universe will reflect in those projects.
Right, so right now, we're so on the edge of talking about token distribution right now. The lawyers here, not that there's anyone recording me. Tiptoe on this. So it's up to Everpedia what they do. And if they did a simple, not very thoughtful airdrop, which I don't think they're doing, if they did, people who have tokens today, which isn't even June yet, would get Everpedia tokens. People who buy in like late May, who are also EOS holders now because they bought in May, but they don't get IQ tokens because the airdrop's done, right? How fair is that? And my answer is, I have no idea, and I hope you'll ask them. Now, airdrops that happen after June obviously will follow a different model, but I don't know how they handle that, and I'll be curious myself. It's an important question.
Everpedia will be here on the 22nd as well.
So come back on the 22nd and ask them, and then tell me what they said.
We got another question.
Yes, please.
Yep, yet another question about block reduction.
Hang on, I've got a guy in the back and a woman in the front, and she's like, oh, go ahead without me. Stop that.
Go for it.
I will defer to your judgment, and yes.
Okay, another question about block reduction. So how does the constitutional layer, if any, either protect or regulate against bad actors in block reduction? So, for example, 21 delegates are voted for, and they all decide amongst themselves to raise the median inflation to the maximum that they can get after election.
Sure. Let's imagine that happens. So it's round 27. The blockchain's been up for 27 minutes. And unbeknownst to us, the 21 who happen to get voted in are on some conference call. They're like, okay, let's crank it up. Would your vote change if the guys you voted for suddenly cranked up their own income through the roof? Mine would. In fact, I might even have a tripwire set up where I might shift my votes. Whereupon they're removed from office by about minute 32. But hey, they got an extra $27 each, so good job. And now their reputation is sullied because the blockchain is forever. So yeah, my sense is it's possible, but it's awfully unlikely. It's like OPEC, how well, and that's like 7 countries, and they can't even get together. Yeah, next question, yeah.
Sure. Hi, my name is Era. I work for Google Fund. So my question would like to follow up more on the DBOS. So I heard you mention about the public argument for voter. So my question is, as a user, what kind of incentive I would have to actually lock up my token for about 26 weeks, right? Just in order to vote, because I think, trustless world, the public argument kind of not reason.
Yeah. A lot of people will have that exact same reaction. I don't want to be locked up. I want to use my tokens. Either I want them to be liquid in case I need to go do something else, or at the very least, I want to be able to use them for bandwidth and storage. And then you won't vote, and that's fine. The only people I want voting are people who are so committed that they want to lock their tokens up for 26 weeks. And they're so committed they're going to do the study to cast really good, thoughtful votes. And it's totally okay to be disincentivized by that. There's nothing wrong with that feeling.
Yeah, but how is the worst case scenario for them? The reward be part of what you the people and do the campaign to vote for me as a user. For me, the worst scenario I can do offline subsidize some voter to pay voters.
Right. So then there's the risk of being subsidized about paying for votes. Now, it is a serious enough issue that I suspect we're going to write into our Constitution, or at the very least into a block producer best practices, that they will pledge publicly, I will not pay for votes. And if they are caught, and trust me, they'll be caught, they will be sanctioned, fined, they might lose their tokens, and whoever tattles on them will be rewarded handsomely. So I hope somebody tries it, because there's nothing quite like having one dead crow tacked up inside of your barn to keep the other crows away. You catch the drift. So I'm not saying that the world's full of good actors. I'm saying enforcement and transparency are a really good thing. I highly recommend, by the way, a book by Elinor Ostrom called Governing the Commons. We are creating a commons. We are creating a shared pool resource. Just like a fishery off the coast of Nova Scotia. If you overfish it, you hurt everybody. But there's a temptation to, isn't there? No, it's an excellent one because people do succeed at this. And Ostrom found examples of organizations, human organizations, lasting hundreds, and in one case, 1,000 years of successfully managing exactly that kind of resource. OSTROM, Elinor Ostrom. And examples of where it failed. And we're so used to the failures, we don't even realize there's so many successes out there. The successes all have 8 things in common. And I promise you, that's a list we're studying carefully to make sure we've got it. We are creating a shared pool resource, and we must govern it well. And that's a whole other presentation with different slides. Next question.
Hi, my name is Hans, and my question is about governance, and specifically about protocol changes and systems improvements. So do the token holders get to vote directly about each issue, or are the block producers that are elected, do they vote on behalf of the token holders?
Right, so the question has to do with, we've got this idea of upgrades, the ability to upgrade the software, but what's the mechanism for approving change? And this is a matter of some flux. I'll tell you the current expectation right now. There's a really good model that Dash does. If any of you are familiar with how Dash does their upgrade voting, I love it. I wish we had that. We don't today. I'm going to be advocating for that. But the current model is much simpler. When a proposal is made for a change, again, let's take a simple one like changing the inflation cap from 5% to 5.5%. That's a global change. That would need to be voted on by a supermajority of block producers. If someone floats that, it's given a name and an ID, and each block producer has to vote one of 3 ways. Yes, I support it, no, I oppose it, or 3, I'm neutral. And 15, which is 2/3 plus 1, 15 of them have to have a yes vote continuously in pace for 30 days for it to go through. So you've got 30 days to look. And if you don't like a yes vote, vote against them. They fall out of block production, or they start to fall out of block production and change their vote, one way or the other. So the token holders vote for block producers, and block producers signal their support for the upgrade. And you can also indicate, I'm voting against it, but I have the software in place to support it if it goes through, because you don't lose your place.
But you can only find out after the fact, right? Like after they vote against your desires.
The votes are public. The block producers signal for 30 days continuously which way they are voting, and that is a continuous vote. And the total is visible. And even if 20 of 21 all voted in favor of it, nothing happens for 30 days. And that's a long time. You vote, if you're in favor of something that the community doesn't like, you're going to fall out of that block production pool very quickly. And now your vote doesn't matter. New producers come in, they cast your votes. Is that making sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a different kind of voting, I'm sorry. I use the word voting, but yeah, it's the block producers indicate their support for the change.
Okay, so this goes back to
Andrew, your name is?
Andrew.
Thank you.
This goes back to the ocean stuff we kind of touched on with the fishery. I only did some light reading into it, and a lot of that tragedy of the commons stuff.
Tragedy of the commons, the prisoner's dilemma, the challenge of collective action, absolutely.
Yeah. So from the basics that I've kind of gathered, we don't talk about the potential difference in the fishermen on the shore. So in this system, we're going to have block producers, large holders, small holders. When we look at one individual potentially looking at their own gain at the penalty for everybody else, what worries you the most? Large holders that aren't block producers themselves. How do you see that apply to the EOS system?
Where do I see the biggest risk? The point that Andrew made, or one of the points, is that unlike a collective of homogeneous fishers who all have the same boats, the same nets, and they're fishing the same fish off the same coast, a lot of commonality, EOS is going to have a big, diverse ecosystem. So, yeah, what does that mean for the health of our Swiss village experiment? What I'm cautiously optimistic of is that the people with the most skin in the game will be the people with 1% to 5% of all the EOS tokens. They're fairly large holders, that no one's got more than 5% that I've seen, unless they're somehow doing it secretly. And that's a ton of money to try to buy that much. And they have an enormous economic incentive to maintain the health of the system. I am confident in the ability of that self-interest to drive collective positive action. And we will find out.
Got a question over here.
My name is Rick. This is just a general question to make sure I understand. So, you cannot, once you vote your coins, you can't sell them?
While they're locked up, they are unsellable. Okay. You have to wait, you have to stop voting, and then they come trickling back to you, 1/26 of them every week for 26 weeks. And as you come back to you, you can dispose of them, stake them for bandwidth, whatever you want to do.
So do you have any idea of what percentage of the token holders are going to actually vote? Because they might be concerned that they don't want to tie up their coins for 6 months or whatever.
Probably most of them. I doubt that even half the tokens will get voted. Probably, I'm thinking 5% of all tokens will be cast.
Okay, and when they're locked up, then those, if they wanted to sell, they have to wait the time period to get the coins back in the right. So about half, but that doesn't, does that cause any issues with like the nodes that are going to be there that are going to be running in terms of, you can have fewer people influence who's going to actually run these nodes?
I'm not following your question.
Maybe I'll catch you offline.
We'll find out. Sure. I know our host has a question.
So real quick before your question, just want to gut check with the crowd. These are excellent questions. We have, unfortunately, a hard stop at 9 o'clock, so we still have time. So I wanted to ask, who here still has a question, a burning question they want answered? And then who here would like to be able to mingle and have a drink and network with everyone, or keep going with questions? Questions it is, okay.
You see the collective rule.
Should we, what's the order?
I really would like our host to get a microphone. Oh, give him a good one. Oh.
The good microphones are the ones where you don't press the power button to turn them off.
So tell us your name.
So, I'm Darren Brisman. I told you my name earlier. I am surprised and honestly a little disappointed that you have come here to talk about this amazing new first blockchain distributed operating system, and all the questions have been about governance. Perhaps the least interesting thing.
But the newest and the scariest.
Hold on, the first question was about resources, and you guys shut the guy down without a straight answer.
That is true, yes. So I'd like to ask a little bit about use cases. Who do you see actually using this stuff? Who is going to get value out of EOS, as opposed to all the people sitting around arguing about who's going to vote their
Right. So real quick, who here is working on or planning to work on a distributed application of any kind? Okay, I need all of you to stand up. Okay, I want you to give a 1 or 2 word answer. Well, first, yeah. Stay out. I need a photo of this. So first a photo, and then I'm going to ask each of you to give me a 2-word answer in response to Darren of what on earth you think your use case is. Right on. Okay. In 2 words, or Peter, your use case.
Political party.
Political party. Local marketplace. Wallet keychain management. I'll give you 3 words. Go ahead and sit down.
RPGs.
Gold games?
Video games, yeah.
Right.
Transparent voting.
Transparent voting.
Exchanges.
Collectible marketplace.
Collectible marketplace.
Going about the wrong way around, understanding technology and then building products.
Automotive marketplace, and what's that? A browser, and
Delivery.
okay. You heard him great. I'm interested. Insurance. Hiring platform. Game development. Storage.
Empower writing. To empower writing.
To empower writing. Am I missing anyone? Just with the dap. Some people are standing, but they're standing like standing right over the dap.
Securities lending.
Securities lending. Advertising with privacy. Retail payments. So we touched on insurance. There's a bunch of different kinds of insurance. I heard video games. I know one guy is working on a layer that will allow compatible games to be written where objects can be traded between games, save games can be traded, game personas can be bought and sold, game licenses can be bought, sold, and rented. And somebody said that the total value of all of the gold in World of Warcraft exceeds all of the Italian lira. Let me say more about Italy than about World of Warcraft.
It's actually true.
Is that true? Yeah. And those are just the ones here in the room. I've got a list about 3 times longer that I can show you offline.
Seems like we're going to need more than 1,000 transactions per second.
We might need more than 1,000 transactions per second.
Hi, Ryan Powers, fellow Porcupine. Had a quick expansion to Andrew's question.
Sure.
Is there, so take Wall Street, for example. A lot of regulations on Wall Street, a lot of oversight on Wall Street is kind of tailored for them, by them, I guess. They hold a lot of power in kind of creating their own rules. Is there any sort of mechanism in place for EOS to prevent some sort of concerted effort of the top 100 or of the 21 block producers to prevent a, I guess, concerted effort to write the rules in their favor?
Sure, it's like regulatory capture, in a way. The risk of any commons is a cabal exerting control to get a disproportionate share. There's actually 3 games being played simultaneously. The simplest one is the distribution of the golden eggs coming from the golden goose. And most people pay most attention to the distribution of eggs game. But there's also the health of the goose, keeping the goose healthy. And people will make the goose sick in order to get an extra egg. Pretty soon your goose dies. And then there's a 3rd game that is setting up the institutions by which the Swiss village will keep track of their goose and protect it and keep it healthy. This is an enormously complex system of 3 intertwined games with different cadences, different rule sets, and different game trade-offs. So it's a game theorist's paradise. And when you get through about chapter 4 of Eleanor Ostrom's book, you'll go, oh my God, illiterate fishermen are making this work. So can we, if we put our minds to it. And it will take effort and a lot of diligence and monitoring. The biggest challenge is the monitoring. If all of Wall Street was done on a blockchain and you could see like all the deals and all, yeah, you're nodding, you get it. Okay. Great question.
Hi, my name is Bao. I have 2 quick questions. Can you clarify when you stake your tokens for voting, does that mean you can only change your vote for a block producer every 6 months?
No. You can change it any time you want to.
Okay.
You can change it every minute.
Okay.
If you wanted to.
So second question.
It's when you take it out of voting that it begins to come back.
Right. Okay. Second question. Recently on the Telegrams, we started talking about identities. Do you have any updates from Block.One on whether they're doing anything about that or they're thinking about it?
I know that so I mentioned the 5 layers of our platform, the architectural layers. That top layer, that user layer, there's a lot of things being done about some form of identity, DApp being provided. Dan is very excited by that and spends quite a bit of time on it. And I'm also aware of a website called One World Identity. It is a clearinghouse for 225 different organizations that have been working on digital identity for over a decade, many of them. I started reading the site a while ago, and I am blown away by the depth of thought that has gone into that. I am fully expecting some of them to provide dApps for identity. But identity is a very interesting and complex issue. I will not do it justice here. My toes are barely wet in that space, and it deserves a lot of attention to detail. But I'm convinced that self-sovereign ID and the ability to disclose that which you wish to disclose and nothing else, and a link is worth your while, Facebook, I think that's the future.
But that's something that they're focused on, Block.One.
Well, our current focus mostly is creating an environment where dApps like that can be built and can thrive. Will we provide an identity dApp on June 3rd? I don't know. Probably not. We certainly haven't committed to it. And there's a lot of space for a lot of different dApps that do versions of that. So who, runner, yeah. It's up to the microphone people that if you want your question answered, you want the microphone, get their attention, not mine.
Hi, my name is Gabe. I spoke earlier from, I'm from ProHyper. My question revolves more about security, and I know I asked this question earlier, I just wanted to reiterate it. Once you guys go off on the token and become on the mainnet, how am I going to be storing my coins? Should I store them on BitShare's wallet, or how is the wallet going to work with the governance and storing them? Sorry, it's kind of a new question.
Who here is really familiar with hardware wallets and, okay. These people all know more than I do. If you're asking for qualitative advice of what I should do given my use case, please talk to them. Because will there be a native wallet? We are working on a wallet app. Well, there'll be several actually. I guess that's an answer, sure. Like, should it be a Trezor? I don't know. Yeah, so.
Hey, yeah, my name is Dennis. Great presentation so far, first time with EOS. I have two questions. The first question is, when's the flamethrower coming out?
Yeah, the flamethrower.
And my second question is actually a serious one, which is interoperability.
Yes.
Clearly, a lot of great coins, a lot of great blockchains, a lot of great visions out there. Even different operating systems facilitate communication between themselves. Clearly, we don't know who's going to be the winner in some time. If I'm looking to build an application, I may believe in EOS quite a bit, but I also might believe in others. What are my options? And it's more of a philosophical question. Thanks.
Right. So there's a universe of issues called interblockchain communication. And in particular, a lot of very good thinking and writing has been done by, his name is Emmett Searer. He writes hackingdistributed.com. This is his blog. And he describes what he calls a two-way trustless pay, a way of making transactions be atomic across blockchains. It's a hard problem. We have done a lot of work on interblockchain communication. Dan recently published a paper where he talks about what the future set is going to be. And I've been so busy on governance, I don't really remember what he wrote. Stop recording me. And so I can't give you a good answer until I can go consult the white paper that he wrote, and then we can talk some more. The short answer is we know that inter-blockchain communication is a crucial feature. And if it's not functioning fully on June 3rd, it will be functioning soon after because we know it's important. So there you go.
Since we talked so much about governance,
Your name again?
I'm Greg.
Hey, Greg.
Developer. Have you thought about, or are you concerned about like some group that just doesn't like EOS buying a lot of tokens and crashing the system with bad votes?
So, what's the token worth today? About $8. So let's say $1 billion. So you need what, 51%. So they need to spend $4 billion, assuming that their buying didn't drive the price up. So, what's it?
85%.
Well, what would they vote exactly? Would they vote for a particular block producer who then starts to do bad things and the blockchain starts to get harmed? So let's see, 5% of 8 billion. Somebody help me out. 400 million. Okay, so I can spend 400 million to stick a thumb in Dan Larimer's eye and hurt the blockchain. Okay, I don't know who the short list is for that, but maybe they exist. Carl Icahn, Google, sure, maybe. Okay, so to block them, I would need, for certain cases, 1/4 as many votes as them to prevent them from, I would need 1/3 of their votes to block them from getting 2/3 majority. And then you'd have to basically rally the other token holders and say, hey, this 5% holder is starting to hurt the blockchain. Your investment is at risk. What are you going to do about it?
That's why don't we provide some sort of reward for staking the token for 6 months.
Why do we not?
5%.
I will tell you exactly why we do not incentivize voting. Because voting provides the public good of judgment. And if you pay for a vote, you no longer get the judgment, you just get the vote. And the last thing we need is stupid votes. We need votes coupled with judgment. Nothing else will keep the blockchain safe. So yes, if a bad actor began to harm the chain, that would incentivize people who previously had been holding their tokens close to either bail or vote. What will happen? I don't know. But isn't that the risk every community faces?
So we've spoken, sorry, my name is Warren, and we've spoken a lot about governance, but I'm sure there's a bunch of developers here, and so in any good developing community, there's kind of the hello world app, and then as soon as you get past that, there's that kind of like, that's called a to-do list app, right? And so one of the things that, and maybe this is just my lack of experience, but Schema and IPFS and these different video streaming services, one of the things that's confused me is storage and data rights. And as I noticed in your presentation, you mentioned something to the effect of data structures that are provided on the back end of this service. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what the data storage mechanisms are, so that when I get to that's right, my first to-do list app, where does that go? How the hell do I do that?
Right. So there's going to be, you heard the question? Looks like you did. So there's two primary kinds of storage that are relevant now. There's three. There's storage of a smart contract in memory, which is the most expensive and costs the most to stake. There's storage of account transaction balances. And then there's storage of off-chain stuff in IPFS files where what's on-chain is just the hash. If you don't know what IPFS is, we should talk offline. So the question is exactly.
Okay, so it's so you.
What are your data structures? So you provide. So what you're probably thinking about is account balances and other forms of
I'm thinking
data.
about arbitrary data that I want to.
Oh, arbitrary data.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, blockchains are basically slow, expensive, distributed databases. Right. And they want to store small things.
Yeah.
So if you got a big thing like a snippet of video, you're going to store it in IPFS or something like that. It'll hash the contents. The hash is hash addressable. You then store the hash in the blockchain, and then someone wants to see it. They resolve that through the IPFS, and they get the file that way.
So I would like to add to your comment. Developers, I look, they have an API for storage on top of EOS. It supports, not large storage, but it's significant size. It's the same API used in Steam, so you can persist textual data, right? But if you need to store like video, then a serialization API is not yet implemented on EOS. There is a work going on.
We're expecting to be providing a whole bunch of sample contracts with existing data structures that you'll want to modify for most use cases, I imagine. Next microphone is where? Yes.
Hi. Hello.
Your name is?
My name is Jason. Thank you for your time today. It's really helpful. I'm going to ask a question that might be top of mind for a lot of token holders out there. It's about valuation. And instead of you giving us a framework of valuation, I'm going to propose a framework and you can pick out all the flaws with it. my mature framework, how I think about it, is that the value of EOS should be made out of a lot of maybe components. One of which is the value of all future airdrops. Second, which so if I divide this 2,000 by the 5%, so 40,000 should be the value of the entire EOS token value today, except I don't buy the token for the processing power the system provides today. I buy it expecting more processing power to come in the future. So that's why I think the third component could be the expected future value of the processing power. So three components, so all future airdrops, speculators, expected processing powers, I would expect all combined to be the value of EOS. What is the flaw of this valuation framework?
So your name is Jason, right?
Yes.
You know Eric from Columbia?
No.
So Eric, meet Jason, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Eric is a theoretician in the blockchain crypto space. I really want to watch the two of you have this conversation.
Well, thank you for your time, Travis.
So we're going to take a few more questions. Sorry, which?
Wait, hold on. Eric, do you want to respond to that?
No, I think afterward.
You want to hear it?
I just have a quick question that I read about what you guys taking into consideration taking into consideration latency and speeds and this network stability. Are you going to mandate that these nodes are globally diversified in some capacity? Is there going to be any?
Well, remember that Block.One is not even launching, let alone mandating anything. And I've been having conversations with token holders and potential block producers, and I'm confident that token holders who will vote for block producers will be looking for block producers who have geographic dispersal, who reside in stable environments, probably a majority of which will be distant from the reach of certain Western powers who might try to harm the chain. And that will be up to the token holders to decide amongst this plethora of block producer candidates. Certainly we're expecting that geographic dispersal will be a factor. And I know that I'm planning to write my own just napkin recommendation of how I would store block producers. And geographic dispersal is on my list, absolutely. By the way, I totally will answer more questions over drinks if you're buying.
Are there any more questions? They have been killer so far. Okay. So we have a couple closing remarks about upcoming events. Thank you, again, thank you very much for really thoughtful questions. Thank you, Thomas, for answering. So we wanted to quickly say that we're having another meetup here, same place on the 22nd, featuring the co-founder of Everpedia, who just today announced the closing of their $30 million funding round with Galaxy Digital, Mike Novogratz's firm. So 22nd, you can RSVP on the Meetup app. And also we'd like to give a quick shout out to a couple people here. We have people who have come from a long way away within the community. We already said hey to Kevin over here from EOS Go, Mr. Paul Atreides, if you've seen him in the Telegram channels as well, Mike Haggerty from EOS Virginia. And then we have some volunteers that are helping the EOS community in New York gather. We'll be having happy hours, just standing happy hours throughout the city. Each week or every other week that we'll announce through our various channels. So Scott Minter is one that is helping organize that. Thank you very much. And I'm not sure if Mark, we took a picture of him from 2015, so we weren't sure what he was going to look like tonight.
Thanks, Mark.
But these two are right now hosting the happy hours that we'll plan across the city. The first one will be on the 15th at Ainsworth, and that will be on the Meetup as well. So, We wanted to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's been a great inaugural meetup for EOS in New York City. Thank you for coming out for how far as you went. Thank you very much, Thomas, for answering so many questions and being so informative. There's obviously a lot to learn about how EOS will function and how it will even launch. So we hope that you'll continue to come back, gather together, exchange knowledge, ideas, theorize about how it'll go. And everybody, we will be having a informal after party at, pulling up the place, the Gordon Bar at 60 Thompson. So if you'd like to come join, talk a little more over some drinks that won't be free, sorry, those are, grab them while you still can. That's great, but thank you very much everyone, and enjoy the last 10 minutes. Thank you very much.